Come on. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Come on.
Hey, we're live. I think maybe I don't have the stream pulled up, so I can't say for sure. But I get the feeling we are live. This is Generation Orange. I am your host of the week, Sean Ringrose. Most of you know me by now. I am joined wonderfully by a couple of special guests that'll be co-hosting with me today. First, I'm going to introduce someone that people maybe in the show aren't familiar with. Dynamo Insider. Would you like to introduce yourself? You'll need to unmute, sir.
Okay. My name is Brandon Castro. I'm from Erie Sports Network, but I'm not as Dynamo Insider. So yeah, I'm here today along with Shane and Les, and let's get the show started, shall we?
Absolutely. And also joining us tonight is going to be Andres. Andres, you want to introduce yourself? A lot of our people will definitely be acquainted with who you are.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, Andres. Some of y'all may know me, but I do the Foxtrot mostly on social media. But I also do a interesting podcast called Noodle Time.
Interesting. That's a good word for it.
Yeah.
I feel that way when I talk about Generation Orange too.
Yeah,
It's an interesting
and
vidcast, man. Interesting.
yeah, and with Tony, which unfortunately we weren't able to do the episode this week, so I just want to go ahead and hop onto to this week's show to make things much better.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate both you guys joining me this week. Obviously, the big things going on right now are, let's be fair, it's all Dynamo, right? Like that's kind of the big focus right now. With that said, obviously there is some national attention, international attention being given to not just the Dash, but the NWSL, women's soccer, kind of everything that's going on with that. If you're not aware of that, I definitely recommend you do some reading on The Athletic. There's plenty of articles out there right now, but if that doesn't make you go, oh man, I don't know what will. I really don't want to dive into it tonight on this episode in particular, but I definitely wanted to call it out. He doesn't have a camera. You live. Chill, Mark. Chill. I'm just glad he's able to join us. Just I wanted to make sure that we got a chance to, we being myself and Mark and Generation Orange in general. Again, my views do not necessarily reflect the views of Andres or Insider here. But you're right. I dress up for others. I don't dress up for Mark. You beer slinging. These guys come in. They ready, man. Let's go. They were here early, by the way. I just want you to know that, Mark. They were here early. I'm sure Nestor appreciated that too. But getting back to this, the NWSL stuff, I wanted to make sure we had a chance to voice our support for the players in the NWSL, the players in women's soccer, those that have been affected, those that have, that were not directly impacted but have been affected, and those that haven't even been impacted because they haven't had a chance to be. Just know we support you. We are here to stand side by side with you, and we will continue to support you through this however we can, whether that's just sharing on social media, whatever we can, or just voicing our opinions and our support. We will continue to do so however we can. Oh, dang, Harry. Moving on from that, though, like I said, not going to touch on that for too long. But Dynamo, obviously, like I said, that's kind of we're going to be heavy on the Dynamo tonight with two very well-versed fans of the Dynamo, and then myself. I think it's only fair that we talk Dynamo. We maybe get into the nitty-gritty. Discuss. Obviously, there's currently an open GM position, and that seems like something worth discussing. And then, of course, there's been a handful of matches the last couple of months. I think it's probably good to talk about maybe who the standout players have been, maybe players who, there's like 17 players that are coming up for contracts are ending in the off season. It might be good to discuss who we think should maybe not stick around at the end of the season. I've got a few names on that list. And then, maybe we'll talk GM a little bit, talk some rumors, talk some top candidates, and hit on some expectations of ours. And who knows what you might find out on this show. I'm highly recommending you are tuned in right now. Definitely make sure you stay tuned in. Don't drop off early. You're going to regret it. With that said, guys, any opening thoughts, Andres or Insider? I'll open it up to both of you first before we really start diving in.
Yeah, I can start first. That's okay. But yeah. going back to the NWSL, obviously I had like a lot of thoughts on it, but I don't want to pretty much like make this like a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
It's a
but like
podcast itself, trust me.
but yeah, but yeah. I just want to let the players know that we understand like everything they have to go through, especially every season. And like with this just surfacing last week, and the fact that they had to suspend match week essentially just reschedule, which is rightfully so. Honestly, the fact that the players have to be listened and the players have to be taken care of, and those responsible have to be essentially apprehended and just put in the essentially exposed for what they have done to the players, because what they done was inexcusable, and like I couldn't stop thinking about the players. Honestly, like it's hard for me to understand what they go through, and on top, and like even going back to like 2015, like honestly it has to be pretty tough. But yeah, I just want to highlight that really, and it's tough for me to not expand on that, but I understand for sure.
Yeah, I'll be honest. That was one of the reasons I didn't want to touch on it this week in particular.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get you back on Anders to talk about it another week later on. But for sure, it's definitely deserving of its own episode at the very least, which was why I didn't want to. As you noted, 3 hours would be a bit heavy tonight, but hour and a half, wanted to at least make sure we addressed it and at least talked about it. Not talked about it, but at least addressed it and voiced our support where we could. But yeah, it's, again, if you don't know about it, make sure you take the time to read up on The Athletic, and there's plenty of other places on social media that have shared out articles or have written their own threads on it. And clearly it's a time right now, I think, in our society where these things are starting to come to light, where victims of these types of situations are more, they're in better positions where they can come forward, and that again, it starts with one person standing out and stepping out, and then we see the impact of that now, and clearly we've seen it over the last however long, but especially now with NWSL players and women's soccer players the world over. There was an article that came out in the Australia, one of the Australian soccer sports journals or whatever, from Davana, who used to play in the NWSL. And boy, those were some heavy accusations as well, that weren't coach specific, but were player specific. And it was a very interesting read, a very long read, but a very interesting read. But anyways, let's let's move on from that. Great way to start the show. Let's move on from that. Again, not let's talk Dynamo. That's the only way I'm going to be able to move forward.
Oh boy.
Let's talk Dynamo. Yeah, let's move to a depressing subject, right? So let's talk results of the last few matches. Obviously, we had that 3-game win streak. Hey, that's pretty awesome. And we've not done really anything since then. That win streak feels like it was definitely buoyed by the inclusion of Darwin Quintero into the lineup. Definitely made a huge impact and a huge difference. And then the sudden return to form of one Fafa Pico, and the sudden out of nowhere growth into form of Griffin Dorsey. Kind of curious, is there anything that you guys have seen in that three match win streak specifically that gives you hope for this team being able to pull out a surprise in the next coming couple of matches? We have obviously the one this weekend, and then we'll have the one in Austin very soon, is the one I'm really keying on, because it's probably the biggest match we have left this season. Only because I believe we are mathematically excluded from playoffs now. Thank God, in a way. But I'm just curious. Is there anything you guys have seen during that 3-match win streak in the last couple of matches that gives you hope for the rest of the season, or are you kind of like me at this point where you're looking to the off season, going, how quickly can we get it here?
I can start first. That's okay, but um, so there's not much hope really. It's hard to be optimistic about this team this late in the season, especially after going through the 16-game winless streak, losing all those points, and just you just watching the team playing a game like you go into a game like understanding like if they win it's because um they like but they essentially won by the most minimum margin possible, and like I feel like that has been like the common trend here, even though they haven't won a lot of games this season. And yeah, obviously the road game kryptonite that we have going now, like I'd say 6 years, I guess. Also that with like we haven't won a single road game yet, with 3 road games left in the schedule, and like even though we'd have like a game this weekend because of the international break, obviously that gives me a really, it still doesn't change the fact that the results, incoming results at least, might be uh, pretty bad. Like at least like if we're gonna get a road win this season, I'm hoping Austin, so I can like watch them get a road win here since I live in Austin. So that would be awesome. But oh yeah, I can definitely talk about like the specific games too. But yeah, I just want to hear what Dynamo Insider has to say about it if he has any thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, these teams they have been pretty well known so far this season because right now, I mean, we have Seattle, LA, those guys, those are going to be highly rated teams going into the playoffs. And then, of course, you have Austin struggling, which they're under us. So now it's like, who out of these two teams will come forward to show that they are the better team this season? What it is, we can still salvage, possibly. And then after that, you have to go home, face Colorado, and then go all the way back up to Canada to face Montreal. And right now, Montreal, Colorado, those are tough teams who came into the season with doubts. Colorado, they weren't sure which players to keep in their midfield, but they brought in, took out players, and now look at where they are right now. Montreal, you'll see, okay, they like came in, they were predicted 12th, 11th at the bottom, but now they're slowly making their way back up. And then, of course, we all know Seattle. Seattle's going to be right up there. MLS favorites, MLS Cup winner favorites. But we just came from a 4-2 road loss against Sporting Kansas City, who are neck to neck with them. So right now is just what it is. Can we save? What it is, can we show who should be here next year? Who should be gone next year? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You look at the schedule that remains, and you kind of pointed it out, I thought, very well. Out of the last, 4 or 5 matches that remain in this season, I think I can project that we win one, and that's if we can go into Austin and win our first road match of the season. If we don't win that match, I'll be honest, I would not be surprised if we lost out the rest of these matches. None of these matches that remain on our schedule are going to be anything short of absolute, drag out bouts against the top teams in the league right now. SKC, Seattle. You mentioned LA, not a best team in the league necessarily, but always have the chance to be a very good team on the pitch. And then, of course, Montreal, who you noted, Insider, a very good team that projected not to be a great team, but have managed to find a way to make it work anyways, and have been, doing very well in the league and in conference play consistently throughout this season. And then Austin, the lone kind of opportunity I think that we have to really win a match is Austin in Austin against Austin. And it holds a lot of value for us to go in there and win that match. Number one, they came here and beat us. Number two, it's Austin, and we should always want to go to Austin and win regardless of anything else. And then, it's Copa Tejas is technically on the line. If we go in and we win in convincing fashion, then FC Dallas's match against Austin holds a lot less value for FC Dallas or Austin at this point. So there's definitely a benefit from us going in and seizing that opportunity against Austin, but it's not going to be an easy match for sure. And I can guarantee you, Austin fans are going to be out in full force. I'm sure Andres can attest to that from the Austin perspective, as it were. But I'm curious about the Austin match. Looking ahead to that one, is there anything that you feel like the Dynamo need to focus on exploiting in that match in particular? And side question, are either of you guys a fan of the 5-man backline? Because I really am not.
I'm not.
Nope,
No,
I'm not.
no. You keep it at 4, please. Like it never works.
Yep.
And
yeah, let's go ahead and start with Andres. Go ahead, Andres.
yeah. So for the game, pretty much like the trend has been that Austin is pretty much unable to win games because of the striker position and just the forwards in general. They've been like like recently they did manage to fix that like a little bit, but it's been pretty much like a trend overall the season of since like the very beginning. And I feel like that's one of the places Dynamo can start. Obviously, when they came to Austin, as the things were extremely complicated, especially when Seren gave us the gift of getting a straight red card, and deservedly so. And I just hope this time they get 11 players on the field and not 10, you know. But that's obviously though. But also like the midfield, I'd say like midfield for Austin is pretty good considering that Ring is still a valuable asset for them. Like even though like he came in this off season, he was highly regarded. I'd say so myself too. And defensively speaking, like that's another um side that the Dynamo can take advantage of heading to Austin. With Fabio Pico coming in, it could be like pretty difficult to contain, and hopefully this time Quintero starts too.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Especially the note of how about no red cards in the first 20 minutes of the match, and preferably none to the Dynamo at all throughout the 90 minutes.
Yep.
But let me pass it over to Insider. Give me your thoughts.
Well, right now, let me see, Austin. So they have Minnesota at home, San Jose on the road, and then they come back home to face us. So they have to fight and come in to that game against us. Do we come with good momentum or do we come with weak momentum, wanting to get that good result against a Texan rival? I would say this game is just going to come down to who has a way more coordinated midfield and which defense can make the less mistakes. Because right now, defensively, I would say the Dynamo have a better chance. Um, Now, as far as the forwards, it's just gonna come down to Fafa, Corey, or Maxi, or even better, Griffin Dorsey, who has been in a hot rhythm um, a lot. So like he got exposed against Sporting Kansas City, but you know how how is it? Can we be better on the road and say, okay, this is gonna be our first road win. Let's do it against Austin. This is the basic end of our season this season. So let's end it off in a strong note.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Let me ask you guys a question, a pretty pointed question. If you have the option, are you starting Marco Maric for the rest of the season, or are you starting Michael Nelson? Andres.
The clear answer is always starting Darwin Seren. You know, I'm I'm joking. But at this point in the season, it's gonna be Michael Nelson. Like even if hopefully like nothing happens to Nelson, but like for the most part, he's been doing a pretty good job. Like obviously Marco Maric, I've been pretty critical of him, especially like at the halfway point of the season because he has made like enough mistakes to turn those into goals against us, and obviously that he can improve on that like over time. Obviously that can be fixed, especially after his injury. So and I'm just glad he's okay. But I feel like at this time, like the season is pretty much lost, and they just have to start all the young players. And I like at least I want Nelson is playing, which is good, but I still want to see um all the homegrowns, you know.
Insider.
I would say Michael Nelson. Of course, you'll have maybe one or two chances. We'll see Marco in there. Of course, trying to see if of course he is still going to be here next season. So far, Nelson he has been showing a. Of course, I'm young, but I have what it takes.
Yeah, I think personally, I'm kind of in agreement with both of you guys. I think as much as as much as I respect Marco Maric for coming into the situation he came into, for taking that goalkeeper position and starting position and kind of running with it and being a solid goalkeeper. I think if I'm looking, again, if the season is basically a lost season anyways, just in terms of you're not going to make playoffs, and again, at this point, they're not, then you have to take a look at the long-term picture. And Marco Maric is not the answer at goalkeeper long-term. You don't want to have to spend an international roster slot on a goalkeeper position when you're not getting superstar all-star level performance out of your goalkeeper. Look, it'd be different if we were getting an all-star performance out of Marco Maric. If he was the best goalkeeper in MLS or a top 5 goalkeeper in MLS, then yeah, I could agree with using a roster slot for an international slot on a guy for that position. But getting the results that we've been getting, seeing him make the mistakes we've seen him make, I have to say very simply that he is not the guy for this job long term. International roster slots are much better used on offensive players or central midfield players. Definitely not goalkeepers. And I think that, look across the league, the best goalkeepers right now really are not international players. They are players who are from domestic opportunities. And there's a handful of those guys. One, I'm still upset and sad that we lost out on in Joe Willis, because you look at what he's doing with Nashville and you think about what could have been if he'd have been able to stick around here and we'd have been able to offer him what he really wanted. And not had to deal with Marco Maric. I just think we would have set up for a much better position. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, Dynapod. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, like I said, I think I agree with you guys for sure on the Marco Maric question. I just was curious because everybody has different opinions. So let's talk standout players. I think Insider hinted at Griffin Dorsey being one of those players that has kind of come out of nowhere. That nobody really anticipated, I think, having much of an impact on this squad, and now he's kind of locked himself into that starter position over Tyler Pasher. And then I would say, for me, another potential standout player that I hyped up tremendously in the offseason, not going to lie, Fafa Pico, has proved me right. And then a third one who's proved me right, I think, at least for part of the season, is Maxi Urruti. With that said, I don't know if there's another player on this roster that I would be like, oh yeah, that guy is absolutely a standout player right now. Let me toss it over to Insider first, and then we'll go to you, Andres, last, to talk about your standout players on the season so far.
I would say basically the same list as players you said. Fafa, Griffin Dorsey, Tyler. Those guys have shown okay. I came in with doubts, but I did what I had to do. Griffin Dorsey, of course, he came from Toronto. And then, of course, there was questions of Tyler Patcher coming in from the USL. And then, of course, how would it be for him to come back into MLS after shining the first time? But right now, I mean, first off, Tyler Patcher came in for I believe the first few games of the season. He was basically the whole superstar. After that, of course, he injured, um, started to go downhill. But I mean, now he just has to find his pace back. Now, speaking of pace, Fafa, he has been pretty good. He still needs to, of course, work on his 1v1, how to use his speed offensively, defensively. I think he's great. Of course, he goes up and down, left and right, switching sides with, Pasher, Dorsey, anyone who's playing onto the opposite side of the field. I think both of them, they have been great. And then Dorsey, I feel he should be more of a winger instead of a right back. I feel like he's still not ready to be a full right back for the team yet. But if he stays around next year, I feel like that's something Dorsey he could work on.
Yeah, as for me, like I like to say that obviously Fafa Pico is a most notable pick out of the bunch, especially just coming out of 11 goals and 5 assists so far, despite a mediocre season. And even though it took him like a little while to just adapt to how the Dynamo play, like he's just been out there just sweating his behind for his team, and and he shows dedication too, which is what I really like to see on the team, especially in the state that it is right now. And like obviously Fafa, Dorsey, I'm also somewhat impressed at this point. Like even though like I see him like early when he started, like I liked him better, but like obviously that can be improved upon. But him and Tyler Pasher, which I feel like he's slightly much better than him. But obviously Dorsey, um, did earn a spot over him, which is pretty, I can understand because of his injury, and yeah, like those three, I feel like those are the players that are my standout players for the season so far, and yeah, just looking at what can be done with it with the forward core, and also the fact that we could be using that international spot that Marriage is holding on someone else. Maybe like I feel like it could be something that Dynamo can like fix on for next season, and like whenever that the new GM comes in. So yeah, just a few things to think upon. Just to start the next season with the roster of fresh players that have already proven themselves this season.
Yeah, another standout player that I don't think I really touched too heavily on would be, I think, Darwin Quintero. And I say standout player only from the aspect of we can see how much the offense elevates when he's on the pitch versus when he's not on the pitch. If there is one guy that this offense has to run through, I think overall it became Darwin Quintero the moment he took the pitch as a starter, and he's carried on with that, and he's the most creative player offensively for us. And there are other players on the pitch that will slot into a similar position. Memo Rodriguez being one of them that just can't even hold his shoes at this point. I mean, doesn't even come close. And it's not, it's not necessarily to downplay Memo's, overall importance to the team, but it is to say that he's not good enough. Memo's not good enough, and Darwin Quintero has been. Memo, I think it's an interesting. So where I'm going to shift already right to who's got to go in the offseason. Memo for me is probably one of those players that needs to go, and the reason for that is sometimes you need a player a player needs to get needs to have a change of scenery, as they call it, a change of teams, a change to, change of tactics, formation, coach, system, etc. I think Memo has reached his ceiling in Dynamo Orange, and it's time for him to move on. And for giving him a full professional salary and the output we're seeing out of Memo, as much as I like the kid, the player on the pitch right now is not doing it for me at all. And I feel like he's taking up valuable depth space that we need for, someone else that could come in and provide at least the same at probably a much reduced salary than what we're paying him right now. Another player that I would put in that position right now is probably Boniat Garcia. Obviously age definitely plays a role there, but I think at the same time it's a player that probably is ready to move into a player coach position. Perhaps you can keep him around in that aspect, in that regard, but for my money, he's definitely a player that takes up a depth roster spot that with our current depth challenges, that's not something I'm comfortable spending that kind of, it's not even much money, but I'm not comfortable spending money on a Boniak when I need somebody who's really going to be able to slot into the starting 11 if one of my midfielders is out. Those are probably my two main players. I mentioned Marich earlier. I think he'd probably be my third. And then I hate to say this one because I really like the guy, but his play on the pitch has been very hit or miss this season, and that's Derek Valentin. Again, really like the guy, but what I've seen out of that right back position has not been good enough throughout the entire course of the season. And you look at the rest of MLS and the outside backs that are, and wingers that are out there, and he's just being torched by not only wingers, but he's being torched by outside backs towards the end of matches. So if the fitness is not there over the course of an entire season, then it's a player that's not ready for this level of MLS play consistently. So, Ravi, to answer your question, Boney would be a good coach because he understands football, soccer. He's got a good football IQ, good soccer IQ. He's always been a smart player. He's always, been very intelligent when it comes to football IQ. So, and he's had a chance to learn under some very good coaches overall. Not saying he would be the best, start head coach for the Dynamo or anything like that, but definitely a player that I could see that could be like a player, an opportunity like a Vicente Sanchez was when he was here for that or for that full season. Just a very heavy veteran player that can come in off the bench and create opportunities. But at the same time, he's not a Vicente Sanchez in that he's not that level of and caliber of creativity and capability on the ball. But I'm gonna toss it over to Andres. Who's your specifically got to go in the off season?
Oh yeah, Boniek. I have a feeling he's gonna retire after this season, so obviously it could be like the first one to go. But well, yeah, we'll miss him for sure. As for Memo, I'm quite on the fence about that, honestly. I know it's been pretty tough for him this season, especially with the way he has been playing so far, and yeah, well, I can understand your point as well. So that's why I'm on the fence about it, really, and also because of the fact that he's at homegrown and like, um, the Dynamo's homegrowns don't go we don't have like an abundance of homegrown, so it pains me to say it though. Like it's tough for me honestly, but I can also understand the fact that a memo may need like maybe like a change of scenery. Of if like a coach comes in next season, it could be different. Who knows? But yeah, like those obviously Sarek and before Sarek, obviously, I had to bring up Seren because he has to go. He has to go.
I think
He he's
Sergio just turned off the podcast. I think he just literally cut off and was like, "I'm done."
yeah, Seren. He's gotta go. I'm done with him. He like his best season with Dynamo last year. He had it. Like I really appreciate what he has done, but like this season, he's been very bad. And like he's getting paid too much money, and he's gotta go. I'm sorry. Like and as for Sarek, I he gets torched almost every game, like for sure. And I wonder like if he can like be like a choice for like bench at times, like maybe like get like an actual fullback that can like match up against like one of the best in MLS, and like maybe use that international spot, to get one maybe. But um, but yeah, like Sarek, I also maybe like also like a change of position, maybe like a center back or like something similar. But like yeah, like Sarek's not a like at least a starter. And if I'm forgetting someone, no, I don't
No,
think
you
so.
are.
But like it's not.
You are somebody I realized I didn't bring up before. He hasn't even played a single minute, I don't think, this season.
Oh yeah, for Mayor, yeah, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
my buddy.
yeah. I was
And
gonna say your country boy.
yeah, I try to put bias on the side, but like nationality bias,
Sure, sure.
but yeah, like I can understand that for sure. He hasn't been playing at all, and he like based on the payroll he's getting, like, he's getting paid, and um maybe it's a thing that he has to improve in himself, or it's maybe like a tap thing. I'm not sure, but I can understand why. So I'm still unsure about that one.
Mhm. Me, I would say Ari Lassiter. I think that's one you guys missed.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, going forward, I believe he should probably go somewhere else within the MLS. Because like just going straight down the wing, he is very, very predictable what he's going to do. Scissors, cut out wide, cross, right? So it's nothing really there, as if it was, a Tyler Pasher or even a Griffin Dorsey. Um, Other than Ari Lassiter, I would say possibly Minor Figueroa. Of course, age. I would say he could possibly still come off the bench, but I don't think that would be the case. I would say probably give a young center back, homegrown, and give him a shot. And then of course Darwin Sarin, we all know why. Um, Zarek, I would say he should stay, but not as a starter. I would say more of a that choice. Um, and of course Boniak, I think he should stay within the club, but not as a player. And then I'd say Matel Bahamic. Everyone's been saying, "Oh, he's a young DP. Give him minutes." Um, I've seen what he brings. I've talked to people within the club. Um, most of the times, they have said that he isn't ready for the MLS level competition. And then, of course, Alejandro Fuenmayor. I believe he gets paid more than Michael Nelson, and then I believe Sam Junko, and he has not seen the field at all this whole season. So I think I haven't missed anyone, but I think those are my my guys that would have to go besides Memo, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, Mateo's an interesting one for me. One of those gifts that Matt Jordan just somehow finds a way to continue giving us, even well after he is now gone and dusted. A player who is taking up a roster slot, player who is taking up a young DP slot, a player who came in with a lot of hype, air quote. But I would say a lot of that hype was generated basically by people within the organization trying to market him as a player. Look, our GM failed us miserably. You look at some of these signings that have come in the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years in particular. Yeah, there's been some bright spots, but most of those bright spots have been domestic players or players that have been brought in, from other teams. Um, and you look at the players that have been brought in from outside, domestic, international players, and even I would go so far as to say even teenage Hadabi a little bit. Look, he's been decent, but there's definitely been moments where I'm like, this guy's a starting DP center back. I kind of struggle with it a little bit. But yeah, I mean Mateo Bahamic, and the whole list of other players that we've all mentioned at this point, but. Yeah, shout out to our grounds crew. Man, our groundskeeper has done a hell of a job this season, and that's in spite of college football having started back up too. It has looked phenomenal this season, so I think they finally got that issue resolved. Maybe he can take
Oh
over
yeah,
as GM because he clearly knows what he's doing at least.
yeah. When you consider the fact that you have three professional teams playing on that field on a weekly basis, the work they're putting on the field is insane, and also the fact that they got like new sod this season, it helps a lot after sticking to the same sod for 10 years, which has been taking a toll before 2021. It's been phenomenal the job, and yeah, I just wanted to add that Dynamo Insider brought up Errol Lassiter, which I completely forgot because I'm completely underwhelmed by Errol Lassiter. Like I watched him in the Gold Cup, and he's like incredible. Like we have to have like some way of tricking Errol Lassiter that he's playing for Costa Rica because I want to see what he puts on the field for Costa Rica. Honestly,
Can
like
we
it's
get the what is it, Hispanic or Latino Appreciation Day, and just have him dress up in the Dynamo Costa Rican colors for a single match against Austin, preferably?
yeah, honestly.
Yeah, no, I like the point about Ariel Lassner as well. I forgot that you'd even brought him up, but yeah, Insider, it was a good call out because another player who's taking up a bench slot that frankly could be spent, much better spent than is being spent right now. And is another player that frankly is he's got connections to Tab, but he's got to be a Matt Jordan signing as well. But It's frustrating, I think, as a fan, because we look at our depth, and our depth compared to other teams. Forget the spend. It's not about the spend, but our depth compared to other teams, even teams that are spending around the same amount of money, or, maybe a million more than us. Their depth is much better than ours. There are plenty of teams in the league that are bringing up, academy players and putting them into positions to succeed. And you can point to and say, oh, our academy players aren't MLS ready. But I look at Palomino and what he's done in USL. I look at Eric McHugh and what he's done in USL. And these are two players that have been signed to the Dynamo now for a year, 2 seasons for McHugh, 3 seasons, I think, actually. And yet here we are, and they haven't seen a single starting minute for the Dynamo. And, you want to go spend that money on someone else instead of trying to develop those players and let them grow in MLS and give them MLS minutes. I mean, you're not getting any better output right now out of players at either of those positions than you would get with either of those players on the pitch. So you're not losing anything by starting them, or at least having them on your bench and on your roster. With that said, let me ask you about homegrowns, Insider. I know you try to keep up as much as you can, and Andres, I know you try to where you can try to get some info on the homegrowns. Are there any homegrowns potentially that you see coming through the pipeline, or that are out there right now on loan or otherwise, that you think have a chance to be impact players next season?
I would say Danny Rios, and then also Ian Hoffman. Of course, we've seen just a tad bit from Ian Hoffman, but I think Danny Rios, he should get a spot. Um, I would say why not do it this season? Because, of course, we aren't going to make it to the playoffs. Probably give him just, a few minutes in, and then just, see what he can do. And so far, I think just those two guys.
Andres?
Yeah, for Dynamo, like for just to assume that Holmgren is gonna play like starting next season. Obviously, Marcelo Palomino comes to mind immediately. He's pretty much played almost every game for Charlotte Independence, and like already has like 6 goals to his name and a couple of assists as well. And like yeah, like he's already faced the pros, and like he's just ready for it, and he has to like get those minutes with Dynamo, whoever that coach is, like either Tab starting next season or not. And obviously Danny Rios also comes to mind. The fact that he's like, and Juan Castilla, obviously, like I don't expect like Juan Castilla to like play immediately. He's still like he's like 16 by now, and obviously Castilla comes to mind because he has been playing for the national team already, so he has to. I feel like he has to like get some minutes as well at some point soon, and just thinking about like a potential player that can or a potential academy player that can come up at some point. Like I always think about like, Logan Erb. He's like one of the goalkeepers for the under 23 team, and I'm still not sure like about the eligibility, how that works, and how whenever he comes up. But like he has been playing for the Dynamo, like he's been training with the first team, but and like he's been seeing like somewhat of a professional experience already. So and I feel like he could come up very soon. So just a player to keep an eye on, like, and hopefully have like an entire bench just full of homegrown Dynamo players. That would be cool. But just like goalkeepers though, that would be cool.
Yeah, I think you've hit on all the big ones. Dynapod mentions Palomino. This is Palomino's Oliver Skip loan season right now, where Oliver Skip comes back to Tottenham and plays a pivotal role for them. People mentioned the Danny Rios as well. That obviously was brought up in chat, as well as obviously by Insider. I think that's a kid that he has all of the talent. It's just a matter of putting it together in a professional setting. And it's another player who, frankly, you have to give minutes to. The longer you hold him out from minutes, the less development he gets a real opportunity at. Juan Castilla, he's now 16. He'll be 17 next season. He's a very small kid, physically small. And while that can tend to work, in the favor for some players, the way he plays, I don't think he's built to be a professional player long term. He's just going to get physicaled off the ball way too frequently. It's not a knock on him necessarily. It's just size matters in MLS when you have a lot of physical center backs and a lot of physical outside backs and physical DMs for that matter. All right. Well, enough about players. Let's shift topics a little bit. Let's talk my favorite topic of all time, general manager. Obviously, Matt Jordan getting the can earlier this season leaves a huge hole, a gaping hole in general manager. We have obviously the Dynamo are searching for a general manager. There are a number of candidates out there. Let me ask you guys right up front, right out of the gate, who are your top candidates? I know of two specifically that are mine, but who are your top candidates? And if you want to put a little, if you're trying to sell them to me as a fan, why are they one of your top candidates? We'll start with Insider.
So top two, I would say Craig Weibel and Pat Onstad. Pat, he has shown um, things he can do with the Columbus Crew. Of course, um, he does bring the MLS experience from the business side as well from player side. And then as far as Craig Weibel, I would say um, basically everything going on within the Seattle Sounders because they're the whole workforce within this league, and also oh he was just appointed to them not that long ago, but he's still shown stuff he can bring with this Houston project.
Yeah, let's toss it over to Andres.
Yeah, we definitely all have like the same candidates, but it's pretty much obvious. Like Craig Weibel and Pat Onstad. Just say those names. They're in Dynamo history already. They've been behind MLS Cups with us, and not only for us but also for other teams. You look at Seattle, they're perennial contenders, like for and like indirect dynasty too, and just seeing like Craig Weibel succeeding with them, and just the fact that they haven't missed playoffs in their existence in MLS says a lot of the dedication. And Craig Weibel just being involved in the organization already knows. He's already experienced with that. He already knows how to try and get the Dynamo in that specific direction. As for Pat Onstad, obviously, the goalkeeper that helped us win the first MLS Cup was that stop against the New England Revolution, and like he recently just won it with the Columbus Crew just this past year, and like even though it like I want to say the Columbus Crew organization like isn't as successful as Seattle is right now, they're still the first franchise in MLS, and Pat Onstad has seen has been behind the scenes behind the organization, and just the fact obviously has I wouldn't not only behind what's been going on with Columbus potentially moving to Austin at some point, but also just like in the soccer specifics. Like he's been like in MLS Cups already, although he lost it to the Portland right before their MLS Cup win, and he's just been there. Those guys, like as players and just like as GMs, they've seen it success already, and not bringing either one of them to Houston is just it doesn't make sense to me.
It would be a bit of a tragedy, I'm not going to lie, for it to not be one of those two players, one of those two guys. Look, they've both got tremendous history. Obviously, both coming from the 2006 and 2006 championship teams. Craig Weibel, of course, not only did he has he been involved with Seattle this season, but prior to that, he was part of the RSL organization. He was not part of the Deloy Hansen cluster of things that happened there that were terrible. But he even with RSL, he did a phenomenal job in that kind of general manager role. And I think he's an individual who clearly understands MLS. He clearly understands the business side. He's got plenty of connections, both player-wise and otherwise. And he's proved it, and he's a name that people will know. Along the same lines, Pat Onstad, you guys already mentioned it. His time with Columbus has been really good. Not perfect, but really good. He's proved that he's good enough. And he also understands and has really good ideas about how to improve the youth system and how to improve that pipeline. and also understands how to, how to target specific internationals to bring them in to be impact players at key positions. And so either of those guys, absolutely for sure. Now, two names that were brought up in chat by Dynapod would be Bliss, who would come from KC, and then Senderos. We all remember Philippe Senderos from his time with, of course, Arsenal. Right now, I'm just kidding. His time with the Dynamo, which led to a U.S. Open Cup. I will say this for Senderos. He has been applying his trade, so to speak, over in the Swiss League in Division 2, Division 1, Division 2. And he's doing a decent job over there. I wouldn't say great, but decent job over there. And could be a guy to consider, but I also, he would be one of those players that I would have concerns over his level of understanding of the MLS roster rules and regulations that are more or less like reading a legal manual, a terms and conditions type thing for any software product that you guys may buy. It's always got that 15-page thing that's just tiny text of legalese. But the other guy, Bliss, coming from KC, highly touted individual, really understands the whole youth development side of things. He's one of the major key guys in the SKC pipeline and homegrown and academy system being so strong. And he's one of the key guys who has helped turn that organization into a transition pipeline for homegrown players to find opportunities with the senior team. And he's probably a guy who's ready for the opportunity. But again, if you're looking at the top guys right now, I think you have to put it Weibel and you have to put it Onstad. And I think in both situations, probably in my opinion, and I've been a pro Weibel guy for a while, but I would have Weibel definitely number one, Onstad number two. But it's not a huge gap at all by any stretch of the imagination. I'd be perfectly content with either of them. With that said, let me ask you guys this question. You guys both in the know. You guys are constantly tweeting out information that people don't already know. Have you guys heard any rumors?
What do you know?
So yeah, so the club, they are targeting Weibel, but Pat Onstad, he has stated that he really wants it. But right now, I believe it's Chris Albright. He was up there with them, but our club couldn't come to terms with them money wise for a contract, and that's when FC Cincinnati came in after that deal, and of course, in which Chris, he had accepted that. Um, Now 6 weeks ago, which was when Matt Jordan got fired. John Walker, he had stated that in 6 to 8 weeks, which is from now and 2 weeks later, they are going to be a whole lot of tests throughout every single department. But within those tests, it is going to have to be with the new general manager. But right now, at this moment, um, no one inside or outside knows who is going to be that new general manager. But as of right, I am told everyone has basically 1 week chill of a job left secured. So it's just a matter of time of just waiting to see who is going to be announced.
Andres, I know you said you didn't, but just curious to clarify, you said you did not, correct?
Oh yeah, no information at all. No.
None that I can share is what I hear. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I've actually heard a lot of the same things that insiders heard along the same lines that the top two guys are definitely Weibel, Onstad. I hadn't heard that Albright was high on their radar, but it's not a surprise. Again, another guy who definitely received a lot of accolades and a lot of hype from outside the organization. A guy that I would not have been upset to see, step into the role. But again, if Weibel and Onstad are the top two guys, then it's up to Ted Siegel to go ahead and put pen to paper, make it happen, spend the money. Either of them would be fantastic for this organization. Right now, we are in a position where we just need a different direction, and we cannot start moving in that direction until we get a general manager. At some point, it needs to be somebody. And again, for my money, the experience-wise, the success-wise, it has to go to Weibel or Onstad. And I think, honestly, Weibel is just my top guy, but I would be perfectly content with Onstad. Dynapod says he wants to see Bliss and Cinderos as his number 2. Bliss statistically is the most successful. I mean, it, defined statistically, I think Weibel's actual record overall in terms of success is actually technically better, just overall. But that's neither here nor there. He got, unfortunately, a really sour situation with the Deloy Hansen stuff from RSL. But in either case, like I said, even if Bliss were the one to get it, I would be perfectly fine with it because at least I know that our academy system would be spitting out prospects in the next 5 seasons without a doubt. And there would definitely be a pipeline available for players to move up to the senior team pretty quickly. With that being said, I have a really serious question to ask, and it's one that I always ask people when I get an opportunity. Are you tab in or are you tab out for 2022? Let's start with Andres.
At this point, it's gonna be tab out. I did give him like a lot of leeway. I like to say when it comes to him coming out of the coronavirus pandemic, probably like affecting the player market and all those things. But I watched the games and like he keeps making mistake over mistake, which it could be on the players, but like at the end of the day, he still makes the calls. And just like the last game too, you can just go back to it. After getting the second goal scored on, like he just makes a substitution for like to take out Seren, and I believe it was like mainly I remember Seren because like obviously Seren is Seren, and but yeah, he makes a like the point I was trying to get is just that like he just comes into on the road against Kansas City, and like after getting the second goal score along in the 20th minute, like, he makes those changes, and I'm like, what were you planning all along? Like, what were you just wasting substitutions like this early, and like, we just keep putting the game away already, and like it's been those kinds of things that like overall like during the season that you can see those like not only like substitutions but also like how the Dynamo are structured, and you like that could be you can like somewhat connect that to like the slump that we had like with a 16-game winless streak. Like obviously you're gonna say like players, which is okay, but at the same time, like whatever happens in the games, it still taps fault. But also not only the players though, but like also what Matt Jordan left him. So it's been pretty tough for me. But like at the end of the day, like I've been pretty much like tab out. But I feel like it's gonna come down to what's gonna happen, like closing the season and just like whatever happens to the GM, which should be done. We should be getting. I think we should be getting one before the season ends.
Insider thoughts on tab in, tab out?
I'd say tab out. So tactically, you don't really see anything from him compared to any other coach, even if it's one who is an interim coach. You don't really see anything different. Um, Realistically, his main tactic is just using wingers, Fafa up and down, Dorsey or like Patcher up and down, and that's really it. I feel like his plan is just hand it to them down the wing, cross it inside the box. Whoever gets it there, and that's really it. I don't see nothing defensively going forward, playing at the back, anything of that. Although that's something Tap stated that he didn't want to do besides strictly high press. Um, but I mean, there's like really so much more. Um, you know, a a good coach can do with this squad. But right now, I'm a tab out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys. Look, there's talk in chat. People saying if Bliss is hired, then it makes sense for Tab to stay. If otherwise, Tab out. Even if Bliss is hired, I have a hard time thinking that Tab sticking around here is going to be great for anybody. There's nothing that I've seen out of Tab this season, tactically speaking, or his approach to players that tells me that this is a guy that can succeed in MLS over the long term, or can succeed in MLS with the right players. It's a guy that, with a team that of players that have clearly shown they're good enough. I mean, the matches we have done well in, we have been strong. I wouldn't say dominant, but we've been strong for the most part. In those matches, it's very clear that we can be the better team on the pitch. But somehow, even with that, with the talent that he does have at his disposal, he can't figure out how to make it work. And I feel like he's gotten lucky when we've won, more so than he's gotten it right. And then this 5-man backline that he continues to push out there, for whatever reason, obviously does not work. And then he has to, as Andres pointed out, he ends up having to make substitutions to change, to revert that change, to try a different formation and a different tactic. And that's just a waste of substitutions, and it's a waste of a period of the match where realistically you usually need to get out on the front foot if you want a chance in the match. We're not a team that goes and scores late goals consistently. It's not our MO. We need to be out there fast. We need to be on the front foot, and we need to be scoring the goals right out of the gate. 3-4 goals to even have a chance in most matches. But so Kenny says, for me, it's when all the tab defenders blame Brenner and Jordan for the issues. While there is certainly some truth to this, they don't really have any achievements to fall back on. I mean, yeah, that's very true. There's a lot of tab in people on social media that like to say, well, look at what tab was given with the Brenner and Jordan tenure, and how bad the players are and the talent level is, and give him better players and he's bound to succeed. And while, yeah, there is some truth to being able to have better players and, performing better on the pitch, I have to say that even with that, I'm not seeing enough in the things that he can control. No, he cannot control the talent level of the players he has, but what is he doing with the talent level of the players he has right now? I mean, look, he was brought in because he was supposed to be a coach who would be able to bridge that gap and that divide between the homegrown players, the academy, and MLS. And we've not seen it. Any player that's been brought in that's a young player has struggled to find their place in this roster. And Tab is a guy who came from the U.S. men's national youth teams. It's not a guy who should struggle with those types of players. He should know how to help those players succeed, and we haven't seen it. And plenty of those players exist out in the wild in the USL, in Palomino and McHugh. Griffin Dorsey is not a young player. I hate to say it, but he's not. He's a player. He's not a young player necessarily. The Dynamo have scored 5 goals in the last half hour of matches all season. Yeah, in the last 30 minutes across, I think we've done 20-something matches at this point, maybe more than that. We've scored a total of 5 goals in the last 30 minutes across all matches this season. That's not a good number, and it speaks to one of the struggles of Tab's tactical approach and Tab's formational approach, which is we're going to run and run and run and run and high press and run and run and run some more. And yeah, sure, that can work in other places, but this is MLS. This is Houston. This is heat and humidity at its hottest and its worst. And when you're constantly running for 90 minutes, you just can't do it. You are going to break down. Your body physically is going to break down. We've seen it. We've seen it in a number of players that have come down with various ailments, muscle strains, and things like that throughout the season. And then we've also seen it just in the lack of mental fortitude going into the last 30 minutes of matches. It's kind of like these players know that they're going to concede a goal at some point in the last 30 minutes. And as time wears on, if they haven't conceded one yet, with 10 minutes left, they start looking like they're getting ready to concede. They're just not mentally strong enough to defend the lead, or even defend the draw, as the case may be. But let me get you guys' thoughts on that. Tactically speaking, if you had to change a tactic right now for the Dynamo to try to eke out wins in these last few matches, what are you changing? If you're coach specifically, what are you changing? What are you doing to try to change the fortune in the last handful of matches? We'll start with Insider on this one, then we'll go Andres.
I would say get more coordinated within the midfield, because right now, I would say that is going to be your like key. You know, Portland, they have a good midfield. They have a coordinated midfield. Us, we don't really have one besides, Matias Vera, but he's more defensively. Offensively, you just have Darwin Quintero, and he would just basically put into the squad towards the end of the season. Coming into the season, you thought, oh, okay, uh, Joe Corona, Manuel Rodriguez, all those guys. But when they've been getting those minutes, a memo, we have not seen anything of that. Even Tap stated, I want more of Memo. He still hasn't done anything to like show him, give Memo more minutes because he can break out and show me what I want to see and really play out the back. Typically, right now, it's just going to be send a long ball forward. You should have Fafa, Maxi find it, and then just do something off of that. No one really goes out the back besides a goal kick. Other than that, is just send it off wings. So that's something I would probably change heading into next season. If it's Tab or if it's a new coach, get a better coordinated midfield, get someone who can control that game when we have the ball and we don't have.
Yeah, for me, we could. Well, first we can always start by not putting five in the back. That's a good first step. And yeah, with four, obviously four. Like I've been always thinking about like 4-3-3. Obviously there's no easy solution to what's been a pretty crappy season, but I've always thinking about like how, um, we can start playing from the back, like how it can work out potentially, and what we can try to salvage with the forwards we have. Obviously, like in the case of Rudy, since we'd have like an actual number nine to replace him, like whenever he's not playing well, that's another issue in itself. I've always been thinking either what could be with us just playing with four in the back, or just like adjusting what we have up front with like some kind of like 4-4-2, but like probably like putting like a striker in either like either Pasher. I wouldn't like to say Pasher, but like put Pasher like on the wing and just put it together either Fafa and probably Dorsey. I'm not sure still, but like it's just a really a really weird season, to be honest with you. But I've always also been thinking probably like I've been seeing like a lot of teenage Halebe are just sending the balls forward. Like obviously he's been like pretty successful against Austin, but it could only be because of how they've been performing this season. But I feel like I think also like think about like teenage Halebe and like how we can probably like move around the midfield. Maybe we can like start playing from the back more, or just like adjust to have like more midfielders compared to forwards, since the number nine is clearly not working. Maybe we can start like try opening out the passing channels from there, since we're gonna have like more midfielders to like play around with. But obviously, no, with no one, no more players to finish the ball with. But just to have like more midfielders to like see where we can put like the ball like around the opposing box, to see if we can like be able to finish it somehow. Well, yeah, like there's no easy answer to that to how we can salvage something tactically, but then again, I'm not a head coach, so I'm
It's not your job.
that's some of the things. So some of the things I can think of, honestly, from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I think those are good call outs. I look at it and I'm a fan of the 4-2-2-2 formation with two defensive mids and then, two wide midfielders. Then you have basically a striker and a shadow striker is what I look at. And your striker would obviously be a Rudy or Corey Baird. And then your shadow striker would be Darwin Quintero, or if a Rudy's starting, you could always have Corey Baird in that position as well. The reason why shadow striker to me makes more sense than just a straight up two striker combination is Rudy's really good at pushing that line forward, pushing against that back line, pushing against the center backs, and pushing them up the pitch, and that creates space for a shadow striker. And you think about a Darwin Quintero in a shadow striker role, if you can get him the ball quickly on the counter, and you have a Rudy on that line, how many times have we seen Darwin Quintero be able to slot a pass through or slot a ball over the top of the defender, and then a Rudy being able to catch it or turn on it, and then hit a quick shot at goal. Just things like that, little things like that. Shifting to a 4-man backline, just like you said, Andres. Clearly, my biggest thing is shifting to a 4-man backline. Other than that, but also keeping 2 defensive mids. I do think there is value in that, especially when you have guys like Vera and Jones, and even Boniak, who could play that D mid position as a substitute. Darwin Seren, you noted, probably not for that position anymore, but that kind of is what it is. And then your 2 wide midfielder positions, I think that's got to be Fafa Pico, your Griffin Dorsey, your Tyler Pasher. And all 3 of these guys, you think about it, they're guys who don't mind tracking back on defense too. So you can kind of have them, floating in that midfield position out wide. And, when one of the guys goes forward, leave the other guy back a little bit so they can help those defensive mids and those, those central mids be able to play in that position. A guy that I forgot at central mid and defensive mid would be Joe Corona. Perfect guy to play that pivot ball long, to be able to, after the counterattack's been killed by a guy like, I don't know, Matthias Vera, you feed it out to Joe Corona, let him pivot that ball forward to Darwin Quintero, let Darwin Quintero slot it into either a wide midfielder making the run or Maxi or Rudy pushing the defense, and then see what happens. But agreed with you guys overall. I think it's unfortunate that we're in the position we're in as a team. But there's definite improvements to be made. Speaking along that lines, we know we're going to end up with a new GM, possibly a new coach. What are your expectations for a new GM coming in? Let's say that it's a Weibel or an Onstad. Let's just go with what we expect is likely going to happen. If it's one of those 2 guys, what are your expectations for those guys coming in? Who do you expect them? What positions do you expect them to target to upgrade? All of them is not a good answer. I need a definitive answer. And then, other than player personnel, is there anything else in terms of expectations that you have? Dynapod says playoffs in the chat, and I can't argue with that either. Let's start this one with Andres, and then we'll jump to Insider.
Yeah, I feel like the pressure should fall on Tetsigol. Like, he has been well spoken when it comes to what he wants to do with the team and how he wants to spend his resources. And well, I definitely appreciate that, but obviously it comes down to action. And whenever we get the new GM, hopefully either Craig Weibel or Pat, I feel like there's a lot of things we can improve on, but obviously like the one that can be easily filled and you can like put like a big impression on is bringing a number 9, for example. Like, obviously you have like no number 9s other than Fava Pico, like, or no Fava Pico, but like Rudy. That's what I meant to say. And like Rudy's not doing pretty good like at all, and like you just bringing like a striker that has like that can leave like a big impression on the league will be like a pretty good first step. And yeah, like from there, another position that I will be able to to improve upon, obviously midfield. Like, if you want to bring someone creative, or like just want to figure out what we're gonna do with Quintero, or what we're gonna like adjust on in the midfield, like obviously like a creative midfielder will be like a pretty good second choice. And from there, obviously like all of them, it's an easy answer, but I feel like it's pretty appropriate when it comes to this team. Like, it's gonna come down to the players we end up uploading during like the season, whoever we don't pick up their option, or we leave unprotected for like expansion draft or whatever. But it's a lot. But I feel like either as a striker or a creative midfielder will be like pretty easy choices.
Insider.
I would say bring in more left-footed players. That is something we have been lacking. So right now, I believe it's just Lassiter, Junka, and Adam Lundqvist. I believe those are lefties, besides Seven Patcher, of course. Bring in someone who can help Darwin Quintero if he's still going to be here, um, whether if it's from the midfield or from the striker position. Probably someone like an Edward Tuesta, Latif Blessing, someone who can help get the ball to him, and someone who can cover for him in case, of course, something happens up front. And then, of course, as far as the expectations, I would say, of course, you have to make the playoffs after not making them for so long. And then, of course, Um, try to reunite those fans who are wounded, who still think, okay, just because we have got this new owner, we still aren't going anywhere. So prove a point not only to the fans, but prove a point to the whole league that hey, we're the Houston Dynamo. We won 2 MLS Cups. We're gonna do it again. This is basically a brand new face, a brand new logo. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you guys for the most part. There's definitely key things that a GM coming in needs to be able to do. And the first is definitely tied to the starting 11. We need to see some upgrades in the starting 11 and in specific positions. And I think GK is kind of my key position right now, goalkeeper. And then obviously the outside backs and the center backs in front of them need to be better quality. I'm not saying that necessarily you have to shift out the entire back line, but I am saying that the players that are currently there in the situation they're in is not it's not doing enough. It's not good enough. With that said, something I want to see out of a new GM very quickly is helping to bridge that pipeline, bridge that gap between the academy and the senior team. Whether that's just bringing Palomino up, ending that loan, or just letting the loan expire, as it were, and just having him ready to roll in the come preseason time. And same thing with Eric McHugh. Even if they're not going to be starters, at least have them in a position to be able to earn the minutes. I think other than that, looking at things in general, I would really like to see some staff improvements. And I'm not just talking necessarily coaching staff, but I do feel like our physio staff has not been good enough. You look at some of the injuries that have taken place, and you look at the tactical, especially with the tactical approach we've had this season. And it's clear it's just not been good enough. It's clear that these guys were not ready for a full 90 out of the gate. Look, it took Darwin Quintero how long to get into match fitness, whether you want to blame that on COVID or otherwise. A good physio team is able to overcome those things, and a good physio team is able to make those things go away. Outside of those things, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I would specifically target. Maybe perhaps having somebody like a data scientist on staff that is, someone who's a data analyst that's able to really break down, key information, match over match. And the one thing I feel like we haven't been good at doing is preparing for other teams. And yeah, that should fall to the assistant coaches, but I do think that there could be a position there as well. For somebody with some data analytics background to come in, sports analytics background to come in and be able to prepare our staff and prepare our players for the trends and what they've what they're seeing in the numbers and the statistics that point to how specific teams play and how specific teams will try to exploit certain things. If you can break down other teams' strengths and weaknesses, you can look to exploit the weaknesses and you can look to mitigate the strengths. And I don't feel like we've done that at all this season. We've kind of just been floating through the season, so to speak. With that said, though, guys, first of all, thank you guys for joining me. Second of all, here's your opportunity, Insider and Andres, to share your socials, share your shows, tell us about yourselves as much as you want. The floor is yours. We will start with Dynamo Insider.
All right, yeah. Of course, you guys can follow me on Instagram. It's dynamo.insider. And on Twitter, it's just the Dynamo Insider altogether. And then, of course, you could follow our network of Area Sports Net on Twitter and Area Sports Network on Instagram. That'll be all. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Andres?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Twitter. You might see me active doing either Dynamo or Dash things, but my handle is Dynamic Foxtrot. It's also the same for Instagram, and we also have like a podcast called Noodle Time. It's a reference to better times with the Dynamo, and I do cover Dynamo and Dash with Tony. We try to do it on a weekly basis whenever we're available, but we just love doing it. So. But yeah, we usually have it done at least like almost a couple weeks, hopefully. But yeah, we have it over there like at Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts. We have like a lot of platforms, but yeah, you can like just either just go to my handle. I do have my link to my Ko-fi page, which is also the page that I use to connect all the episodes together, along with some blog posts whenever I get a chance to write, and also like a place to support me if you guys are able to. But yeah, that's gonna be kofi.com/dynamic foxtrot. That's ko-fi.com/dynamic foxtrot, like my Twitter handle.
Fantastic. Insider, did you have something else you wanted to throw out there? I saw you unmute.
Oh no, and that was it.
Okay, cool. Guys, as a reminder, if you are tuned into the show, of course, make sure you hit the follow button if you have not already. And if you can, the subscribe button here on Twitch, twitch.tv/Generation Orange. We do appreciate it. If you're also listening in via perhaps anchor.fm/Gen Orange, or perhaps you're not listening in and you've tuned in live, thank you, first of all, for joining us. Secondly, just know anchor.fm/Gen Orange is where you can always catch our post-episode audio-only versions of the show. Great to listen to on your drive to work, from work, anywhere else, perhaps to a Dynamo match, away from a Dynamo match, especially when we have a venting episode. By the way, those are the best to listen to on the way home after a match because, man, you just feel like you're right there venting along with us. It's great. With that, guys, with that being said, I don't know about you, but me personally, I am 100% ready for this GM to be announced, whomever it's going to end up being, whether it's Weibel, Onstad, or somebody we don't know yet. I'm definitely ready for them to be announced. I'm ready for them to take over. I'm ready to start seeing their fingerprints on this organization, and I'm ready to see the organization start taking that next step and finally moving in a specific direction, building a specific identity, and moving forward, because I am done with the Matt Jordan era. It has been cut from my memory. Okay, it's been cut from my, it's been cut. And I am definitely ready for the off season. Obviously, there's a lot of players we need to figure out what to do with, but that'll come in time. But with that said, until then, guys, we'll just keep on holding it down.